Foundation of St. Teresa's Convent at Ernakulam, 1887. Fresh events in the history of the church in Malabar led to the foundation of a convent and school at Ernakulam, the capital of the old Cochin state, on September 1st, 1886, by the bull Humani Salutis Octa, His Holiness Pope Leo XIII settled the age-old dispute between the Padra order and propaganda on the question of ecclesiastical jurisdiction in the Church in India. Following the Concordat concluded between His Holiness and His Majesty Louis I, King of Portugal, new ecclesiastical divisions were again effected in the church at Malabar. Alope, which had hitherto been a part of the vicariate of Verapoli under propaganda, and where the discalced Carmelites, by dint of strenuous labor, had laid the foundation of a flourishing church, was now allotted to the reconstituted Diocese of Cochin. Consequently, the parish of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, with all its institutions established with help received from abroad, particularly from Belgium, had to be handed over to the bishop of the newly reconstituted Diocese of Cochin. The Canossian nuns, whom the bishop was to bring from Italy, were to take over the convent of St. Joseph's, its beautiful chapel in Gothic style, and the school established by the Carmelite tertiaries from the year 1879 onwards. In view of the impending changes, Dr. Leonard Melano, Vicar Apostolic of Verapoli, dispatched an order to Father Candidus, the parish priest at Alope and director of the Carmelite tertiaries, to come at once to Ernakulam. He was to bring along with him Sister Teresa, headmistress of the school and assistant to Mother Magdalene, the superior of St. Joseph's Convent. Sister Teresa's response to the call of obedience was prompt and generous. For nearly 7 years, she had served the parish, and now, all on a sudden, she had to quit the scene of her labors to start afresh in a strange place. As a true Carmelite, she had been grounded in the virtue of obedience. She left for Ernakulam along with her 2 stepsisters, 3 orphans. She was leaving an institution already developed for a large and richer field ripe for the harvest. Arriving at Ernakulam, she settled in a rented house and immediately set to work. This then was the humble beginning of what today is St. Teresa's congregation. Father Candidus, whom the Vicar Apostolic appointed director of the new convent, has left the following record signed by himself in the Register of Visitations, now in the archives of St. Teresa's Convent.
St. Teresa's Convent of Ernakulam was founded in a private house belonging to Mr. Lee of Cochin, rented at ₹10 per mansum on the 24th April 1887. But as the place proved unhealthy, the convent was transferred to the church bungalow in the east of the northern church on July 1st of the same year. Finally, on 14 January 1889, the sisters shifted to the new convent building, though only half completed. Mother Teresa of St. Rose of Lima of Madras, who took the religious habit in the convent at Alepe, was the foundress of the new convent. As their vocation is teaching, they opened their school on the 9th of May 1889 to the great joy of the public of Ernakulam.
Ernakulam, the capital of the former Cochin state, is one of the beauty spots of Kerala. A stranger visiting this town for the first time is at once struck by its scenic beauty. Seated on the grassy lawns of the well-laid out parks on the foreshore, as his eyes feast on the gorgeous sunset in the distant horizon, and as he watches the tiny little fishing boats, the steam launches, big and small, cross and recross each other all day and night, he exclaims with delight, "This is indeed the Venice of the East." Apart from its natural beauty, the Ernakulam that Teresa entered on that sultry afternoon of the 22nd of April 1887 was no more than a small fishing village with its lanes and bypaths. Its Broadway was no broader than a narrow street. Ernakulam, as described by the foundress herself,
is the capital of the Hindu state of Cochin and is the stronghold of heathenism.
Then her sanguine temperament sees a note of encouragement, and she adds,
"Notwithstanding this, through the exertions of the Carmelite fathers, there are many native Christians in it. Still, there is much more to be done, and Ernakulam furnishes a splendid field for missionary activity."
Humanly speaking, the prospect was bleak. A solitary nun with two helpers in a predominantly Hindu population, vast majority of people living in squalor and misery, the aged poor, often compelled through misfortune to crawl about the streets begging for their living, a caste-ridden society with its numerous castes in hierarchical order of superiority. There were first of all the Brahmins who performed the priestly functions, next the Kshatriyas, to which caste the ruling prince belonged, then a host of other castes, each one hypersensitive of its status in the social ladder. The orphanage register mentions 10 different castes. Caste discrimination was a thorny problem which the foundress could not altogether ignore, although once received into her orphanage, there was no longer a question of caste, save the one caste of the children of God. But among the people around her, caste distinction led to a great deal of discrimination. A low caste person, for instance, passing along the streets or narrow lanes had, like the lepers of old, to cry out aloud at the approach of a Brahmin, lest even his shadow falling on the latter should pollute his sacred person and necessitate an immediate bath to cleanse him of the pollution. Mother Teresa makes special mention in her letter to Father Alphonsus, dated 4th April 1892, of the Pulayas or Pilayas, a slave class in South India who cultivate the fields. In all her letters, we see her marked predilection for these unfortunate children of God. Such then was the social setup of the people among whom Mother Teresa came to live and work. Teresa's closest neighbors were simple fisher folk. It was the privilege she shared with her divine spouse, who picked his first disciples from among fishermen. A Catholic nun was something strange to them. At the sensational news that a nun had arrived at Ernakulam, the fisher folk flocked to see what a nun was like. As days went by and they saw more of her and heard her speak their own language fluently, their curiosity soon gave place to admiration. Day after day, they came with gifts of fruit, vegetables, eggs, and fowls, and whatever they thought would be useful to the kind lady who had already won their hearts with her ready smile and her words of kindness and sympathy, for Mother Teresa had the charming gift, so necessary through the true missionary, to rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Here then at Ernakulam, Sister Teresa will spend full 15 years of the remaining part of her life. Here, she will fulfill the great mission of founding a religious congregation of sisters, with whose help she will carry out her magnificent apostolic work in the field of education and charity to the poor.